What's going on, gamers? I am Rakaba18. Happy holidays to you. I hope you are enjoying your holiday season with those that you love. I am doing the same. I am deep in the middle of my holiday vacation, but I decided to take a minute to make a video for all of you. There's a lot that I want to talk about, and I've been kind of kicking around this idea if I wanted to do this or not. So here we are. Lots to talk about. But first, before we get into the main purpose of this video, I just want to say a special thank you to everyone who discovered or came by my channel this last year. 2022 was a remarkable year, and Rainbow Six Extraction was a huge part of that. I met a lot of really, really cool people, played tons and tons of games with some fun, interesting humans, met people from all over the world, and I'm incredibly grateful for all of you. And so I wanted to say a special thank you to the Rainbow Six Extraction community and to my community at large. I hope you have a wonderful, safe holiday. This video will be the last piece of content you see until after Christmas for me. And then after that, we will get right back into it, and I will be starting to work on my plan for 2023. So I'm very excited. And I also wanted to expand on that a little bit and say that based on what we have in public knowledge, the only thing that we have from Ubisoft at this point is this public-facing roadmap that you see here on my screen. And I wanted to kind of discuss with all of you and let you know that I do plan to continue to create content for Rainbow Six Extraction as it is released. We do know for sure that we are going to go back in February, May, August, and late October into November. We're going to see the old Crisis events. And I'm really excited. I will be doing and covering all of those. I will also be doing Maelstrom resets every week. And anytime there's new content, I will be there. So thank you. I hope to see you around and see you for the new year. Those old Crisis events were really well done, and I can't wait to get back into them. It's going to be a great time. Now, I also wanted to kind of talk about a very important topic that this is part of why I decided to do this video. I think this is a very important conversation, and I debated and kicked around and thought about, like, what should I do and how should I address this? And so this is how I'm going to address it. Now, when I close this chapter, I am closing this chapter. You're welcome to comment here. You're welcome to ask me questions in DMs, whatever it may be. But as far as I'm concerned, this is the last comment I'm going to make on this, and then we will move on from there. So let's go ahead and talk about the main reason for this video, which is this right here. So a number of weeks ago, this infographic was put on the internet, and I personally saw it and other roadmaps like it that were also released as leaks, and I personally thought it looked really fake. And I came out and said as much, and there are a number of reasons for that. The reasons we will get to in this video, and then we're going to move on from it. So let's start with the basics. I think the biggest problem that I have with this infographic and the other ones that were released over the last couple of months or over the last several weeks is that I personally was sent different versions of this infographic by a number of people over the last 6 months. And they started, with simple infographics that had like spelling errors and issues with them that I thought were not something you'd see from a public-facing document. But basically what you should know is that I have been sent versions of this as early as 6 months ago. And so that automatically triggers red flags to me. If you have a fan or a viewer or someone who is part of the community but not an official Ubisoft employee, sending you different edited versions of this infographic and others, that's an automatic red flag for me, as it's probably not real. It's probably something that they've made. And so that was the number one reason for me believing that it was not an Ubisoft-facing document. Now, I want us to take a step back and just talk about the differences between a fake infographic and fake information, okay? I don't know where the information that is contained in this infographic or any other infographic that has been floating around on Reddit, on the internet, I don't know where they came from, okay? So I cannot speak to the veracity of the information itself. But what I can tell you is that the infographic itself and the others that are floating around are almost certainly fake, okay? And there's a number of reasons for that. But I want you to take this point home if you take anything from this video. I cannot speak to the information contained herein. I cannot describe how they got it or where it came from, if it's accurate or inaccurate. What I can speak to is that there is a number of issues with this infographic, and it is almost certainly fan created and or fake or not an Ubisoft facing document. So take that from this video if you take nothing else, okay? And then the entirety of my commentary here is going to focus on the infographic itself, not necessarily the info within it. Now, there's gonna be some like small, like minor overlaps and stuff, but that's the main point I want you to take away. All right, so I told you that a number of these infographics were sent to me personally over the last 6 months, and that is a pretty big red flag. If you're getting like micro edits from fans that are sending it to you, pretty big red flag that it's fake. The other main issue is that this infographic allegedly came from within an Ubisoft source that only spoke to and communicated with one person. Now, that's a sort of self-circular logic, because on one hand, you can understand why that person wouldn't want to disclose a lot of information about themselves and get themselves in trouble. But at the other side of it, if only one person has access to this information and they won't discuss anything about it, it's a pretty good sign. Scientifically, that's a pretty good reason to doubt the information. It doesn't mean it's not real. It just means that, to me, if I have one piece of one source that I can't even interact with or talk to or anything like that, that person becomes less credible just generally. Even within like journalism or whatever, scientific method you want to use, most of the time you're going to want to understand multiple sources and understand and see multiple angles. But that's a macro level issue. There's a number of others that I want to talk about here. This sort of reads to me like a wish list of fan created content. It reads to me as if this is all of the things I hope we see in year 2, because it's all of the things we wanted. And we did not get anything like this in year 1. And so if you take year 1 as an example of what Ubisoft or what the Rainbow Six Extraction team plans to do, going into this in year 2, it seems to me like it's almost 4 to 5 times more content that we saw in year 1. And then we're suddenly just going to get that much more in year 2. In addition to seeing the old Crisis events that we know they're going to be there. So we're getting 2 new areas with 3 maps each. We're getting 3 new operators, 2 new Proteans. We're going to get a bunch of new Archeans that we haven't seen in a year. We basically got 3 additional Archeans that were just minor mutations of old ones. And all of these changes and prestige levels and an extra 4 missions and a new horde mode, it starts to read like a fan wish list. And so that is another macro level issue that feeds my opinion to believe that this is not a real infographic. The micro level stuff starts to get even more problematic as far as I'm concerned. So if you look at, I'm going to point your direction right here towards these guns right below me and the gadgets. I have my camera covering the text of it, but it basically says that over the next year, all of these guns are going to be rebalanced so that they're all pretty equal. Pretty standard thing that you might see from a developer. Makes sense that that would be something that they'd want to do. They'd want to balance their guns and such. But essentially, a good percentage of these aren't even in the game yet, and they're already being discussed as rebalancing. That's not something really that you see from developers, especially a developer that didn't really, keep in mind, let's go back to year 1. They didn't really communicate with us about balance changes. We saw like 1 patch update to operators where we got a Finka buff and a couple of gun balances. And then all of a sudden we have guns that aren't even in the game yet, and they're going to start to talk about rebalancing them already. They're not even in the game yet, right? So does not make any sense. And then the other part of this that does not make any sense is that that some of these gadgets are being described as added in over the next 2 years. And so now we're further even extending out how communicative they've been. So in year one, we didn't really see or hear much in terms of what content was coming. But now we're talking about on a year two roadmap, we're talking about gadgets that are going to be added in the next 2 years. And there's only three of them. There were what, four gadgets added last year, and now we're only getting three over the next 2 years. It logically it doesn't line up. Okay, so that is a major micro level issue with this. So that's point number one. And then I am going to also direct your attention down here to year two operators at the very bottom below my camera here. Here we see a recruit, Jackal, and Ying. Okay, so last year we did see two operators added. We got Echo and Sophia, so it would make sense that we would see two more. But recruit there is an interesting choice because I have seen a number of places where the official development team basically said that the infographic from year one pre-launch, that there was a recruit icon on the infographic that was an internal document. A lot of it ended up being accurate, by the way. But that was a placeholder that was just there as like a fan nod or something. And so I would say it's pretty unlikely that they would include it in year two as a I'm not sure what recruit adds to the game, and it was already like officially dismissed as a placeholder that wasn't probably going to be added to the game. And I can't imagine a world in which a community that is desperate for new operators, they're going to add in a recruit just randomly, having officially dismissed it. So the other thing that I want to kind of talk about here is the prestige levels and the new Archeans. This is a very, very important point. If you look at the bottom middle there, it says prestige levels 10 to 50, okay? It makes sense that they would add new prestige levels, but if you zoom in, and I can't quite do it here, but I'm going to ask that you zoom in and read it, and what it essentially says in one of the yellow boxes there is that it takes about 250 hours to max prestige from to level 50 on each operator. 250 hours is a long period of time. And I would say that personally, I find that very doubtful for each operator, considering there's what, like 20 operators in the game at this point. You're talking about over 2,500 hours to prestige level max each of your operators in a game that only added 10 in 1 year. And so we may see some prestige levels, but I doubt very seriously that they would put that level of prestige in. And then one of the single most important pieces of information on this infographic that I think points to it being a micro level problem and a fake is there's a quote and a sentence in one of the yellow boxes there below prestige levels. And I encourage you to zoom in. I'll post some links in my Discord and on social media. There is a quote that says, the long number of hours required to prestige level to max is a way to indicate that the player is, quote, good. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Developers don't talk like that. They don't put public information out there where they're trying to distinguish good players from bad players. And that's a really poor way to distinguish a good player from a bad player. Just flat out, developers don't say things like that. And it sort of reads like somebody's saying that because they think that as a fan, that if I see a level 50 prestige, that means they're good. But all that really means is that you played it a lot. That's not a good indicator of anything other than that you've played the game a lot. And developers would never try to separate the community out from good and bad as a goal for some sort of prestige level. And so I was reading through this on my holiday break here, and it was just sort of like, okay, the issues are starting to pile up. And I think you get the sense that they're starting to pile up, but I've got a few more for you, and then we're going to move on. The last couple are really important as well. If you look under new Archeans, this center right part right here with the Archean that has wings next to the word that says evolution, that is a piece of fan art that I have seen floating around on Rainbow Six Extraction, Discords, Reddit pages, you name it. I've seen it all over the place. There are a number of people within the community that create fan art based on concepts that they hope to see at some point. It's a cool little element of the community, but it's included here, and then the artist's name is added. And I think that is an extremely unlikely thing for a company like Ubisoft to do. And it was the first thing that sort of stood out to me. It's like, I've seen that before. and it's not a bad drawing. It's just it's unclear which Archie we're gonna see and which one that is. And then if you take a step further, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 total new Archies being added in a year in which the game was at its probably peak popularity. We saw 3. And so it just becomes unlikely that they are going to add 8 and that they would include fan art as a part of that. They have their own internal artists. They don't need to include someone else's concept art for their own development. And so that is a huge red flag among a number of others, as you can see. And then the last couple that I'm going to talk about here real quick is this map changes. If you look at the map changes, it's basically describing right next to evolution and Archeans. First of all, under like it says map changes, and then right above it, it says damage. Why is that word included? Why is damage the word chosen there? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And so that sort of stood out to me when I first saw it. And then if you look at under map changes, essentially St. Mary's College is a map that they're saying is being added in year 2, but it's already being discussed as being changed during year 2. So that's a red flag. Developers don't typically, in the roadmap, they don't say, hey, we're bringing this content and it's going to change alongside the stuff that's already in the game. That's sort of a given. Like before it's released, there's a chance that it can have like minor changes and stuff like that, but it's being discussed as if it's already in the game and it's going to change and evolve the way that like Liberty Island, Casino, and Monolith Gardens are. And so that was a huge red flag for me. They just don't talk like that. They don't like include concept pieces that are going to be added in year 2 as also evolving before they're even released. And so that was a major issue for me. So as you can see, like individually, this kind of looks good. It's a pretty well done fake, if you will. But individually, there are a number of like macro level issues that I had with this, which is why I stated that I thought it was fake. And then if you zoom in different pieces of it, and there's others that I'm not going to like nitpick on necessarily, like spelling and grammar errors, and it sounds more like a fan than a developer. Those things are present throughout this entire infographic. But as you can see, there are factual things about this that make no sense. And in my opinion, it is quite fake. There's one more point that I want to make, and that is that we have 2 infographics. We have this one. I'm not going to put them all up on the screen. We have this infographic, a year 2 roadmap that looks like a crisis outline. And we have the public facing replay crisis events. This one right here. Let me show you. So this one right here as well. So we have this infographic that's public facing. We have an infographic that's like this, but it's talking about new crisis events. And then we have a third infographic, which I'm assuming is supposed to be internal. And so my question would be, why do we have so much? Why do we have so many infographics? And yeah, I think it makes no sense that they would do 3 different things like that. And so at the end of the day, whether the information contained in the infographic is real, the infographic itself is almost entirely created by fans. And I will also comment real quick that the commentary and the reaction and the vitriolic messages that I've received kind of give me a sense that they know it was created and they got called out for it. And so those sort of like the vitriolic defensive reaction to me having an opinion about it is pretty telling as well. And so I'm gonna take a step back and take it as a fake, and then hope for the best in year 2. Hope that we see some new operators. Hope we see some new maps. I will be there for all of it. I hope you are as well. I think it's an amazing game, and I think it has some really good bones. That's going to do it for me. I'm going to close the chapter on this, and I hope that you understand my opinion better now. And I will leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like the videos, comment below what you think, and to subscribe to the channel. See you soon.